Hello YouTube, my name is Nero. Today I want to discuss cut content in the Call of Duty series. In a franchise like this, which has produced, 13 main games and countless DLC packs since 2003, there are bound to be some bad ideas that were thrown in there, but unfortunately, there are also some very cool and interesting ideas that were worked on but never actually made it into the final release of any of the games. This video is going to cover 10 pieces of cut content from the Call of Duty series, but keep in mind there is enough source material here to make an entire series of videos, so don't expect every single piece of cut content to be featured here. Let's begin, shall we? The Second Chance Suicide Animation. One of Call of Duty's most annoying and frustrating perks was actually going to have a pretty gnarly animation in the original Black Ops. When you drop into Second Chance, you lay on the ground until you are killed, until you bleed out, which takes 10 seconds, or until you take the coward's way out and kill yourself, whichever comes first. In the live version of Black Ops, when you take the coward's way out, you basically just collapse and die. Originally, you were going to kill yourself with the same pistol that you pull out once the perk is activated. The animation was removed because the ratings board did not want to have any depiction of suicide in the game, even though there are plenty of depictions of torture, people being beat to death with a club, or quite literally dying within a Nazi gas chamber. Modern Warfare 3's cut perks. Just about every Call of Duty game has cut perks, ideas that were thrown around by the developers that never actually made it into the final version of the game. But I feel as though the Modern Warfare 3 cut perks were particularly interesting. Let's go over a couple of them. Black Box was going to be a first perk that would increase the airtime of your air support. Challenger was going to be a perk too that would give you double XP at the cost of having lower base health. Shell Shock was going to give you a riot shield by default on your back. Saboteur was going to allow you to capture objectives faster. NE2, and yes, this is the actual image that appears in the game files, was a perk that was going to allow you to have essentially any perk you wanted in the second and third perk category in exchange for taking NE2 as your first perk. Now, obviously, this was a filler image. I cannot imagine this was actually going to be the image of the perk in-game, but that was definitely a pretty interesting concept for a perk, right? The biggest benefit would be you could have 2 perk 2s or 2 perk 3s or 2 perk 1s in exchange for having this as your perk 1. So you could take something like Assassin and Hardline, or Dead Silence and Sitrep, which would be completely broken in Search and Destroy, or Sleight of Hand and Scavenger, so on and so forth, right? It's interesting to look at cut perks for insight as to what the developers were looking for in terms of game balance and design, and it's also fun to look back and reflect as to what the game might have been like if some of these perks were actually implemented. Can you imagine having a double XP perk where you just basically had less health? I don't know about you guys, but even if my health dropped down to 50 by default, whereas it's normally 100, I think that is a pretty fair trade for double XP all of the time. I'm just saying that would have been pretty interesting. Vehicle Team Deathmatch. In Call of Duty World at War, we had tanks. For better or worse, these 35-ton killing machines were part of certain multiplayer maps and certain multiplayer game modes, but did you know there was originally going to be an entire mode that revolved around tanks? This mode was going to be called Vehicle Team Deathmatch, or Tank War as it was sometimes referred to. You can find audio files of the announcers calling out different things that happened in this particular game mode, and there were actually a lot of different vehicles that appear in the game files that we never actually saw in the Call of Duty World at War multiplayer or campaign. It would appear that Treyarch actually had a lot planned for vehicles in World at War, but ended up cutting it down to simply just having tanks on a few maps in the game's multiplayer.
Vehicle Team Deathmatch! Roll over them! Break their bones! Vehicle Team Deathmatch! Our panzers will crush them! Vehicle Team Deathmatch! Unleash the might of our armor!
Vehicle Team Deathmatch. Get these tanks rolling!
The Call of Duty 4 Brick Blaster. I have no idea why this exists in Call of Duty 4, but it certainly does. I'm not even sure if it deserves to be on this list, to be perfectly honest, because I don't feel as though Infinity Ward ever intended for this to actually make the multiplayer, but it's my list. If you don't like it, make your own list. So essentially what we have here is the USB 45 pistol that for some reason fires cinder blocks rather than bullets, and I actually know about this weapon because it can be accessed via modding. In fact, the footage that you're watching is actually from me. So back in the day in 2012, my friends and I searched for a multiplayer match in Call of Duty 4, and we ended up getting into this particular lobby. The Brick Blaster can still be accessed to this day via modding, but the question still remains, why is this here? What was its purpose? Why was it implemented into Call of Duty 4? Unfortunately, I don't think we are ever going to get an answer to that, but it's still a fun bit of trivia for hardcore Call of Duty fans. Also, did you guys know that Crash was originally going to have a downed Black Hawk helicopter instead of a downed Sea Knight? It seemed like a small bit of cut content, so I threw it in here as a bonus, but it's pretty neat to see Crash in such an early stage of development. But yeah, downed Black Hawk helicopter instead of a Sea Knight. Pretty interesting. The MP40. Well, you may be wondering, well, Nero, how is this cut content? What's interesting about the MP40? It's time for a history lesson, ladies and gentlemen. So the MP40 is a submachine gun that was used during World War II and onward and was produced by Nazi Germany. It is in Call of Duty World at War as one of the 4 usable submachine guns in the game's multiplayer. But the trouble with the MP40 is that it was incredibly overpowered in almost every sense of the word. For comparison's sake, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the highest damage submachine guns of all time. You have the Modern Warfare 2 UMP45, which deals 40 damage up close, which drops down to 35 damage at a distance. You have the Black Ops 1 AK-74U, which will deal 35 damage up close and 20 damage at a distance. You even have the Call of Duty 4 Scorpion, which would deal 50 damage super up close, which will drop down to 20 damage at a distance. All of these weapons pale in comparison to the all-powerful World at War MP40. The MP40 on consoles would deal 59 damage up close. No, that is not a typo. 59 damage up close, which would drop down to 29 damage at a distance. This is a full auto submachine gun that has the highest maximum damage of any weapon in the game besides sniper rifles and had minimum damage that rivaled assault rifles. What was Treyarch thinking? This is absolutely, I seriously have nightmares still about this weapon because I refused to use it because it was so overpowered. But at least Treyarch realizes they messed up, right? They realized it, but instead of correcting their mistake with a patch or an update to World at War, it appears they decided to make the MP40 a gag kill streak in Call of Duty Black Ops. There are audio files in the game that reference it as a kill streak, and some of these audio files are absolutely hilarious. Who knows if this was ever actually seriously considered for the final version of the game, but the fact that there are audio files of the kill streak says that they were at least somewhat seriously considering it at one point or another.
Friendly MP40 deployed. Enemy MP40 spotted. Take cover.
Friendly MP40 deployed.
Enemy MP40 spotted in your area.
Friendly MP40 spotted.
Say hello to my MP40.
The Remington 870 shotgun, M27 assault rifle, and MP7 submachine gun that were all cut from Call of Duty Black Ops 3. I am still pretty salty that these weapons never actually became usable weapons in Black Ops 3's multiplayer. It's well known that all 3 of these weapons were in the game files pretty much since the launch of Black Ops 3. In fact, they were found on the PC beta for Call of Duty Black Ops 3, but sadly, they were never made to be usable weapons in the game's multiplayer. Treyarch even teased us with these weapons, having them oftentimes show up as scenery on various multiplayer maps. The M27 was actually usable on Dorizendraha, as was Zetsubo no Shima via console commands, and apparently the R870 and the MP7 were also able to be used via console commands, but retained the same stats that they had in Black Ops 2, but unfortunately I can't find any actual footage of this. Just overall, I'm pretty disappointed that these weapons never actually made it into Black Ops 3's multiplayer. I love it when they bring back old weapons into current Call of Duty games, but then again, they probably just would have simply been implemented as supply drop weapons, so maybe it's better they were never actually implemented in the first place. Global Thermonuclear War. This was a cut game mode in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. In fact, Modern Warfare 2 had a bunch of cut game modes, but this is the one I wanted to feature because I actually was able to play it. You can play this game mode via modding. In fact, the gameplay that you guys are watching is actually from me back in 2012, right? This is from July of 2012. I was actually in a modded lobby that allowed us to play Global Thermonuclear War. This game mode is incredibly strange, right? You basically have a neutral nuke in the middle of the map. Both teams fight to capture this nuke, sort of similar to like a very large hardpoint that takes a very long time to actually capture. Sitting inside of this objective will earn you points towards earning the nuke, right? And once you get 100 points, the nuke countdown starts and your team will win. While the concept is interesting, the game mode was cut for obvious reasons. It did not play very well whatsoever. What was Modern Warfare 2 well known for? Explosions, right? Lots of explosions, danger close, grenade launchers, C4, whatever, right? And that's basically all you had in this particular game mode. You try to capture this nuke, which takes absolutely forever, all the while trying to avoid grenade launchers and grenades and semtaxes and C4 and all sorts of shenanigans and stuff like that. It was an interesting concept. It's fun to play in private matches if you have access to the mod, but overall, it's probably for the best this was never actually featured in the Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer. Captain Price was originally going to be an American. In some of the oldest Call of Duty 4 footage we can find online, we see this shot of Captain Price in the Middle East, but specifically in the area used for the campaign mission The Bog, which was a United States Marine Corps mission. I wonder how the Modern Warfare story would change if Price was actually leading the Marines rather than leading the SAS. It's not entirely certain why Infinity Ward decided to feature Price's model in this shot. Perhaps it's just an Easter egg, perhaps it was an error, or perhaps originally Captain Price was going to be a Marine and the Modern Warfare series was going to follow the Marines rather than the SAS. It's anyone's guess, honestly, but it's definitely a fun bit of trivia for Call of Duty fans. The 4th Killstreak in Call of Duty World at War's multiplayer. My mind was pretty much blown when I found out about this. So originally, Call of Duty World at War was going to have 4 killstreaks, and the 4th killstreak was actually going to be faction-specific. The Marine Raiders were going to have access to B-17 bombers, the Japanese were going to have access to kamikaze planes, the Russians were going to have access to the Katyusha rocket launcher, and the Germans were going to have access to carpet bombers. There was even a straight-up airstrike that can be found in the game files, along with an inventory icon, as was a kill feed icon. What's also interesting about all of this is they appear to seemingly serve the same purpose, which is bombard a particular section of the map, sort of similar to an airstrike or to a rolling thunder. This definitely would have been interesting in World at War. Perhaps this would have been a 9 or a 10 kill streak in the game's multiplayer. It definitely would have been powerful if it had the effects of a rolling thunder, where it would actually take out a large section of the map. I know it's kind of like a twisted sense of humor, but the Japanese kamikaze planes sound like they would have been hilarious to watch, because you'd have a bunch of these airplanes essentially just bombarding the ground, kind of similar to swarm drones in Black Ops 2, but instead of being robots, they would be actual people in airplanes, basically. And I know we've all called in airstrikes where they just completely miss the mark and don't get you any kills, so you would have a situation where people are calling in this airstrike, essentially, where a bunch of Japanese soldiers are just killing themselves on a worthless portion of the map. It's definitely pretty interesting. I also have to wonder if these kill streaks were intended to, instead of being a 4th kill streak, be a replacement for the artillery. What if all these were actually going to be the 5 kill streak that you have in the multiplayer, but were instead replaced by artillery later on in the game's life cycle? We're never going to know unless somebody at Treyarch actually goes ahead and comments on this, but it's definitely interesting that all of these were actually going to be featured in the World at War multiplayer.
B-17 acquired. Kamikaze incoming! Get to cover!
Kamikaze acquired! Your time to die for the Emperor is now! Our brother finds glory in making the ultimate sacrifice! Katyusha rockets acquired! Our Katyushas are ready to rain death! Take cover! German bombers above! Carpet bomber acquired! Bombers above, awaiting your command! Our bombs will destroy them where they hide!
The forgotten map from the original Black Ops, War Museum. This map was going to be amazing. On every account, it looks like it would be absolutely fantastic, but for one reason or another, it never actually saw the light of day. So what War Museum was set to be was it was going to be a reimagined version of Castle from World at War, but in the original Black Ops. Now, they actually set it as a War Museum, so there's going to be a bunch of relics from all throughout history, and there's also going to be a bunch of references to World at War and the original Black Ops in this particular museum. The map looks absolutely fantastic. The footage we're watching here is from Call of Duty XP 2011, but they said at the event that they just simply never finished or implemented this map. They said that a high percentage of the maps they actually start working on never actually make their way into the game itself. A good example of this would actually be Jungle. This is the original Jungle from Black Ops 1 before they scrapped it and gave the name to another map. This, of course, is the Jungle that we know today, but originally this map was going to be called Havoc, and this map, which was cut, was going to be called Jungle. There's a bunch of maps like this throughout Call of Duty's history, and I wish we could see them in some respect. Like, even if we have to pay for it, I think it would be awesome if they were to allow us to play on maps, even if they weren't finished yet. But the thing about that is, they would never actually do that. One, because people probably laugh at them for charging for maps that aren't even completed, but two, a lot of the maps that get cut from previous Call of Duty games end up making their way in future Call of Duty games, which I think I'm going to discuss in another video in the future. But still, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to conclude this video. Number one was War Museum, but it's not really all about War Museum itself. It's about cut maps in Call of Duty in general. And that was the focus of this video. It wasn't necessarily supposed to be like a top 10, like War Museum is the, the biggest piece of cut content ever. Definitely not. I think the 4th Killstreak in World at War was going to be pretty freaking big, right? I feel as though cut game modes and cut perks are pretty big as well. This video is not meant to be necessarily a top 10 where number 1 is more important than, say, number 7. It's just showing you guys 10 pieces of cut content from the Call of Duty series, and I hope you guys all enjoyed the video. I had so much fun researching this video. There is so much that we don't know about the Call of Duty series. There's so much content that we don't even know we're missing out on, and it's interesting to just dive deep and try and figure out, what these developers have been working on all these years and see what didn't make it into the full versions of the games that we play and enjoy so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section below. And if you guys could do me a favor, drop a like on this video. It took a very long time, basically 2 days to put together. So if you did enjoy the video, drop a like, show some support, share it on Twitter, share it on Reddit, share it on Facebook, do stuff like that. Help the video grow, and that's going to encourage more videos like this in the future. So once again, guys, hope you enjoyed. Drop me a rating. Hope you guys all have a wonderful day.